Good morning and welcome to Toronto Police Headquarters. I'm Constable Jennifer Sidhu. Today, I would like to introduce Toronto Police Chief Mark Saunders. He will be addressing the media at our year-end news conference. Sir?
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for being here. In 2018 has been an incredibly busy year for the Toronto Police Service, not only because of the number of high-profile incidents and complex criminal investigations, but with the day-to-day policing responsibilities and modernization initiatives that took place. Along the way, we were constantly reminded of how the members of the Toronto Police Service go above and beyond to make the City of Toronto the safest and best place to live. First, a brief overview of some of the cases that dominated the public's interest as well as the police service's resources. Not only did we have a high-profile homicide case to look after, we also had to respond to 2 mass casualty attacks, which left a lot of tremendous loss of life and loss of injuries for our citizens. Multi-jurisdictional investigations, we continue to work with other law enforcement and partners to root out guns, gangs, and drugs. Project Patton and Project Switch were 2 that were well publicized, as well as rescue children from sexual assault and exploitation with Project Mercury. Parental abduction is an example how we as an agency never, ever give up on any case that we have, and we can't forget Miss Mann Lewis being reunited with her son after 31 years of not seeing him. Throughout the investigations of these higher profile cases, the service continued to respond to an ever-increasing demand of day-to-day activities. There's an increase in most of the major crime indicators, an increase of homicides, an increase to the shootings, an increase in gun seizures, and in particularly, there were more handguns seized than most years. These trends are not just seen in the City of Toronto, but they're seen right across North America. While keeping the city as safe as possible, we continue to evolve as a police service, making many changes to improve our service delivery and create a modernization working environment for our members. We consolidated units and moved towards district models. We're piloting new shift schedules. We have changed how we respond to various calls for service, such as parking complaints, thefts from gas stations, and theft of liquor. We strategically deployed naloxone to many of our frontline officers who respond to the highest number of opioid-related overdoses. And the enhanced neighborhood officer pilot launched in October continues to run and will run through 2019. All of these steps deliver on the 3 goals which we talk about when we deal with the modernization plan: being where the public needs us the most, developing stronger partnerships to enhance community safety, and dealing with the complex needs of a large urban city such as Toronto. Throughout the year, despite everything that happened, our members have truly done outstanding things. They've rescued people from drowning in an elevator. They've prevented suicides. They've rescued people and pets from freezing water. They've brought shoes to homeless people. They've supported families by purchasing groceries. They've walked into gunfights, knife fights, saved lives, and continue to arrest when necessary. This year, we've started to hire. We are going to continuously hire right now. We're going to be hiring more police officers, more auxiliaries, more special constables, more communication call takers, and a whole host of other things. I'm proud of the work that the men and women of the service have done this year. We're looking forward to 2019 and the challenges that may come to us. And having said that, I will open the floor to questions.
Chief, 2018, as you mentioned, there has been a lot of tragedy in our city. We had the van attack, the mass shooting on the Danforth. There was a Bruce McArthur murder investigation, and of course the ongoing violence we see every day. In fact, a shooting was just reported a few minutes ago by police. As Toronto's police chief, what has this year been like for you, and what are the biggest challenges?
Well, there have been a multitude of challenges. I am concerned about the gunplay that's happening in the city. This is a conversation that chiefs from North America are having. I'm part of the Major City Chiefs Association, and there is an uptick of violent crimes, issues that relate with street gangs. And when those manifest, that becomes critical. As parents, mom, dad, you start to be concerned about, is it okay for my daughter, my son to be out there? As a police agency, we do have a higher social involvement in how we solve crimes, and removing the perceptions that are out there, I think, are something that are critical. Next year, we plan on continuing with the modernization plan. There are a lot of things that we are looking at changing that I think are necessary for today's environment. But my number one is the front line in ensuring that we continue the modernization plan, continue to get the right resources in the right place at the right time. And number two, the gun violence is something that gives me some concern.
You did try in the summer, just sorry to follow up. You did try in the summer redeploying 200 officers to be, I guess, do night shifts and try and get a handle on the gun violence happening. During that 8 weeks, though, there were still 64 shootings that happened.
Well, let's take things into perspective. This is an urban city. This is the fourth largest city in the North American continent, 2.8 million people and growing. When we look at gunplay, there is no magic pill solution. Those officers, when you look at the numbers and you take that time frame in which we deployed those officers compared to the other years, there was a reduction in the shooting occurrences. There was a reduction in victims being shot. That was short term. We have ongoing long-term strategies that we're going to be implementing to change the playbook in order to work with other partnerships to ensure that the gun reduction piece is looked after.
Chief, there was a solution a couple of years ago, as we've documented many times. What's carding and tax is taking away the increase in gunplay, violent crimes shot up. Is there any thought to returning some form of carding, maybe not the current form, to police officers that can investigate proactively?
Well, Sue-Ann, I think you've given me a magic pill solution, and you're not accurate with that. There are a multitude of issues. So I've spent the year speaking about the police can't do it alone. To think that the success story is to arrest our way out of this is a falsehood. 90% of these folks that we arrest are out and will be out and will continuously be released. When we take Project Patton as an example, some of those members that we arrested were people that were arrested in prior large-scale projects. When you take New York City's template, they had the very same challenge. They had the public perception, and there were some realities that certain segments of the community were being inordinately stopped and questioned more so than others. They changed their playbook, as we are as well, too. We have to develop stronger community relationships with all segments of our community if we're going to get it right. We know, and we've seen the results, that whenever we work in partnership with communities, we have more sustainable solutions. The enforcement piece plays an important part. I'm not here to say that it's softer policing. I'm here to say it's smarter policing. And smarter policing will have more sustainable solutions. I think there have to be agencies at the front end that prevent these young boys from shooting others. There's a lot of funding that needs to be put in. And again, not grant funding, core funding into the communities. Nobody's ever, that I know of, was born saying, I want to be a street gang member. We have to look at the root cause of this. We have to give solutions for that, and the governments are participating in that. The enforcement piece is ours, and then the deterrent factor. When someone shoots somebody, they're going to jail. So to help them write job resumes and things like that at that point in time is not the right solution. There should be a deterrent factor when anyone decides that they're going to take a gun and shoot somebody else. Developing the relationship piece is what's critical, first and foremost. Our folks have done a fantastic job. When you look at the number of firearms that have been apprehended or seized, 514, 222 more handguns, 514 handguns. That's 222 more guns than last year, 172 more guns than the year before. So every day we're seeing more guns. So that's one aspect that has to be looked at. And then the second piece is what's motivating people to use a gun to resolve issues. And those are things that we can't just do as an enforcement piece. It is necessary, but it has to be streamlined, it has to be surgical, it has to be intelligence-led if we're going to get it right.
Follow-up. People are saying that the criminals are laughing at you, the gangbangers, that a gun ban is not going to work. They'll still get the guns illegally. What do you say to that?
No, people, anyone, I'm interested in people that are motivated to shoot other people. If anyone wants to put any tools to reduce that, I'm supportive of it. But me, the vast majority of members of the community have no interest in obtaining a firearm and shooting somebody else. I've said earlier that most of our gun violence is street gang related, and I stand by that. That's not just Toronto, that's all of the urban cities right across North America. The street gang issue is our primary concern. Most people that are getting shot are people that are living a high-risk lifestyle in conjunction with being associated to street gang. And so that's the root of the matter that we have to look at. That's what we have to collectively work together in order to properly reach sustainable solutions.
The homicide rate went way up this year. Are you confident that this is not the new normal, that there won't be another record year in 2019?
Well, as I stated early on, this is a year like no other year. We had 2 mass casualty incidents. There's a lot to be said for that. On top of that, we've arrested somebody, allegedly a serial killer. You factor all of these things, and for me to say that this is a normal year, I'd be misleading you, and you'd be misleading the public if that's what you're going to be turning towards. This was a unique year. I'm certainly not looking for another year like that in the foreseeable future. 1991 was when we had 89 homicides. It took a long time to get to surpass that, and I'm not looking at an upward trend. I think this was a unique year where there was a lot of loss of life and a growing concern, not just for the police service, but for the community as a whole. And I do believe that next year will be a different year.
Chief, this year has highlighted a lot, and been very clear, and you said this right now, that when there's an inordinate number of homicides, it's directly related to street gang violence. As we wrap up the year, how would you describe the situation when we talk about street gang violence in the city right now from a policing perspective and a community safety perspective?
Well, I mean,
Is it worse?
well, it's such a broad question. My answer goes back to root cause again. The numbers are one thing. Access to firearms is an increase. There definitely is an access to firearms. I can say that very confidently. But people that are motivated to shoot other people, I've got concerns with. And if people think that it's a matter of just arresting and all is well, that's a far cry from the truth. That's a far cry from the right solutions for today's environment. We need to have the resources necessary at the front end, back end, and of course our enforcement piece in the middle in order to get this right.
Chief, this year has highlighted quite a few gaps between officers and different communities, most notably, of course, we saw the report with the Black community as well as with the LGBTQ community. Do you think that you guys have made any movement forward with the LGBT community, for example, because you've had a long time now to kind of implement those things that we talked about earlier in the year?
No, I think that we have moved forward, and I think we're moving in the right direction. I'm not going to say that we are where we need to be, but what I like about this organization is the desire to want to get it right. When we talk about the modernization plan, we talk about it being community-centric, and when we talk about community, it means everybody. And so in order to get that right, it's the ability of sitting down at the table, having those conversations with all segments of the city to figure out what do we need to do to enhance our relationships. The vast majority of our crimes are called in by the community. If the community doesn't call, we can't solve crimes. So there's a relationship piece that is necessary in order to help those that are in need of help, number one. But then, to be proactive, you have to develop that trust and accountability piece. Our neighborhood officer program is very, very important when it moves towards that. Getting intelligence to deal with local issues, I think is the go forward, is the way that we need to go in order to get this right. I can tell you there was a tremendous amount of work put in to the relationship building with all the segments of all the communities right across the city. You'll see more of that in 2019 as well too. It's absolutely necessary if we're going to get it right.
Chief, do you have any regrets for giving sort of false comfort to the gay community about the serial killers that was at work?
No, I would say that there are a lot of lessons learned. The Toronto Police Service, we knew that something stunk, which is why we put resources in long before the apprehension of Bruce McArthur. And in fact, not only do we put resources in and do countless judicial or authorizations, we put in high-level resources. We put in homicide investigators long before a crime was determined. And I think that was fundamental in the apprehension, because of the fact that when we had the latest homicide, we were able to go back to all of the work, the millions of dollars, the thousands and thousands of hours put into that. We're able to open that up and to put things together to lead to where we are today. Having go forward, and it was something that I spoke on earlier that was misrepresented. And so when it comes to any type of crimes that have any kind of sexual overtone, there's something wrong with the judicial system. I don't know what it is, and I'm looking for what is the solution. Is it at the front end with reporting to the police? Is it the back end through judicial process of going to trial? But we need to fix it. There is a defect when, as law enforcement, right across North America, whenever we put up a picture or any kind of thing and say, and we believe there are more out there, there's a problem, there's a gap. I want to work with agencies to figure out what is that gap and what can we do to prevent the victimization of people. And I think that's a necessary go forward if we're going to get it right.
You did say lessons were learned from the Bruce McArthur investigation. What are those lessons? What changes have been made since?
Well, ideally, what I would like to do is wait until the investigation is over, and then we can start publicly talking about things along those lines. The work that was done was incredible. Acting Inspector Itzinga did a fantastic job with his team, and they're still doing a fantastic job with the work that they have done. The Homicide Squad's doing a fantastic job with the amount of calls for service that they're dealing with now. But with every murder investigation, and I've done many of them, there are always redos. There are always things that you learn to improve upon your skills and your traits to be better. And so as an organization, when we have a look at some of the things that were real and some of the perceptions, what do we do to reduce or eliminate those issues? And so I'm looking forward for that opportunity. It's a challenge for us to figure out what can we do to improve as an organization.
Will it change the way, though, that missing people are investigated?
Well, we've got the new missing persons unit that's up and running right now. So yeah, that was one of the factors. But there are a host of other things too that we need to take a look at, just to make sure that what can we do to help. Whenever the public has concerns or issues, we try to strip it down to find out what caused that and what can we do to prevent that, if we can do that lawfully, understanding that we're dealing with issues that go before the court, and there's certain things that can and cannot be said.
Chief, in regard to the 15 year it's been, how the shootings are up, homicides are up, how did that affect your ability to do day-to-day operations? I mean, we have a third of the city's homicides that are still unsolved. Has the increase in the number of homicides affected Toronto Police's ability to do other day-to-day things, or the ability to solve these homicides?
Well, when you look at the 2 million calls that we deal with on a year-to-year basis, and the over 5 million contact points that we have with community on a yearly basis, things were taxing. But when we talk about, again, the premise of the modernization plan is to create a model that's sustainable for today's environment. So when we look at the alternate delivery methods and all of those other factors, we're starting to see a development. We're starting to move things in the right direction. So when we talk about the shift schedule as an example of some of the things that we have done to help alleviate the pressures of the front line, we're stripping down and taking a very hard look at what we need to do as an organization. What should we not be doing as an organization? Because before, by default, it was when in doubt, call the police. And I'm here to say those days are getting numbered. The public wants the police to be there when the police should be there. We've got highly trained people that are skilled to do certain things when they're doing other things, administrative things, report-taking things. There are other delivery methods that need to be put into place for that. So challenging, yes. Did we answer the bell? Absolutely. When you look at the calls that we do and when you look at the response times that we have for those critical calls, they are very, very good for an urban city, and we'll continue to do that. We've also hired more from communication services, and we'll continue to hire more to get it right, to make sure that the public feels confident when they call the police, they will be there.
If you use that, can you ensure that this is still a safe city?
One is before the courts, the other, the shooter is deceased. Are your investigators getting any closer to understanding what may have motivated the shooting? What a motive may be?
You know what? We have operationally, we've debriefed that, and we look at what what we did during that event and what we can do to improve on that. The fact that our frontline folks were there within 3 minutes and 30 seconds answers that particular question. We're there to answer the bell for those critical calls. When we talk about Finch, and within 7 minutes from the first contact to the apprehension, 7 minutes. But to get into the minutia right now, there's still some more things that need to be looked at and questioned before we come out with any conclusions on that particular incident.
Is it still fair to say that Toronto is a safe
The
city?
investigation for the Danforth shooting, is it still open? And because there's not going to be a trial, are we ever going to get a public account as to exactly why it happened, what happened?
I'm sure there'll be an opportunity to present whatever we can to the public, but it's not going to be today. When there's an opportunity, I definitely make the public aware of that.
Are you concerned that these kind of mass shootings in the city encourage any kind of copycat crimes? We have two, one pretty close to the next in terms of proximity.
Well, it's a different world that we live in, and these are issues and pressures that a lot of the urban cities are going through right now. The most important thing is, do you have a plan? Our organization has a plan. We continuously work on figuring out what we need to do from a reactive perspective, but also from a proactive perspective as well. So when we talk about our countering violent extremism, our model that we have is world-renowned. In fact, we had someone that represented us deliver our model to the United Nations. So preventative is equally important, and it speaks to the importance of developing strong relationships with the community. Because when you strip a lot of these things down right to the basics, 90% of the time there's a member of the public that is aware of something, but they don't report. So we know that when we have officers in place, when we develop stronger community relationships, that we will have more opportunity to be aware of certain things in front of the incident from happening, so that we're not necessarily being focused on the reactive, but the proactive piece. And I think that putting those tools in place with this model, I think, will help us do just that.
When do you expect all this to work? I mean, we are seeing shootings on a daily basis. I mean, people are opening fire, beside cops at
So you're back to
checks
the magic pill
So I don't
again,
know
and
what
it doesn't work that way. We're in an urban city. Shootings will happen. Let's talk about reality. Our role is to reduce those shootings to the best of our ability. You will never see an urban city that will have 0 shootings, 0 homicides. So I want to be candid, and I don't want to make this sound sexy. We take every single shooting incident seriously, and we'll continue to do that. If we have stronger relationships with the community, we have an opportunity to reduce that. But at the end of the day, when a young man takes a gun and shoots, there are different entities that are responsible for that. We are the aftermath of that. What is in front of that? What are the resources that are put in front of that? What are the measuring tools to see whether or not things are successful or not? So to dump it on me and say, what are you going to do about it? I'm going to educate the public and say, if we're going to get it right, it has to be collective. And I'll continue to do that message. So I hope that that message gets out there and people have an understanding that that's what it takes if we want to reduce the numbers. But it'll never be 0.
It's just those programs and stuff, it takes time for all of that to take effect over years.
Yeah.
It's going to happen like right now in this moment. where
Well,
we're-
if you had a look at some of the things we have in place, if you go and you speak to the focus tables, you will see a tremendous amount of fantastic work that is done, tremendous success stories that are all available and at your fingertips to look at, to see. It is being done, it is being successful, and we'll continue to do that. And we will expand those very types of deliveries that I think are necessary. But we need more resourcing. Other agencies need more resourcing for that.
Lawlessness around respite shelters and harm reduction sites. And you said it's not the responsibility of the police to deal with it. Have you been able to work on a plan with the care providers to help pick up dirty needles, deal with the lawlessness, trespassing, and even excrement left on people's property?
Yeah, well, I didn't say it's not our job. I want to be very careful. Harm reduction is something that is incredibly important. When we look at the numbers of overdose deaths, and I think in 2016 it was 6, in 2017 it was 11, and this year it's like 169. So you're seeing this exponential change. So there is a problem that's out there, not just looking at the downstream solutions, but also looking at the upstream solutions if we're going to get this right. Having said that, there is a responsibility for us when it comes to any type of violent crime that is taking place. But when it comes to the community safety piece, all hands have to be on deck. It's not a matter of saying, here, we've built this, now police look after it. There has to be proper funding from all streams in order to have that strong partnership to keep that area safe. But you can't just leave it to the police. You don't want to bring police in harm reduction plans or initiatives. It is not going to be successful. However, I think there's an opportunity to sit across the table, have those discussions, make sure that the funding streams are there in place so that A, you can look after the harm reduction piece, which is what it's all about, but B, the quality of life for people within those communities, they deserve to be in an environment where the resources are there to keep the quality of life where it should be at.
Chief,
In terms of modernization, are you where you wanted to be at the end of 2018 with that? Obviously, there was so much this year that was unpredictable you could never have accounted for. Where are you in terms of your goal with modernization, and how are you going to kind of catch up next year?
Well, I'm not going to say catch up. We're going to continue the modernization plan. And, it took a lot of time to get to where we are. There are things that we've implemented. The Special Constable Program is doing a fantastic job. Within the first 108 days, they took on over 23,000 calls that the frontline people would have taken, had to have looked after, over 3,300 hours of police work that frontline people would have had to take. So expanding that, I think, becomes critical. When we look at unverified alarm calls, when we speak about 97% of the alarms that we had to attend were false. So figuring it out so that it's now, we look at that 3%, within a short period of time, our response has been reduced by 45% of going to those types of calls. So we're looking at ways of doing business smarter. When we talk about the theft of gas, talk of theft of alcohol, and utilizing not frontline police officers, but delivering the same service, but it is done online. We're seeing an increase of 65% for online. So next year there'll be a promotion for more of that to happen. Parking, which takes on hundreds of thousands of calls per year. The online mechanisms that we've put in place for that are all playing a vital role. So it's a sum of all parts equaling the whole. It's a matter of looking at things, reconfiguring those things, the awareness piece to the public so they have an understanding of what role they can play. The misuse of 911 calls has gone up, educating the public on when to call 911. When there's a power outage and your dishwasher's off or your meat is in the freezer, that's not a 911 call. So there are a whole host of things, and it's an evergreen process, and we're continuing to work towards that. The hiring piece, we're hiring again. It is critical. It's important. We do need frontline people out there. The pressures that the frontline people are going through is quite high right now. We've seen an increase of calls for service. We've seen an increase of people coming in and reporting crimes as well, too. So there's a sense of satisfaction in which the public trusts us and they're coming to us more, but with that, there has to be the ability of answering that. So looking at putting the right resources in the right places, I think will maximize the modernization plan and also the technologies that are out there. I'm looking at hopefully by the end of next year, body-worn cameras coming into play. I think that those are things that are all necessary if we're going to get it right for building the trust and accountability.
And probably the body was a huge part of that too, right? Part of the goals of the modernization plan was reining in this giant budget. Again, obviously this year there was so much you could never have predicted. It's undoubtedly going to have been an expensive year. Are we going to be, do you think we can be reducing the budget next year, or did 2018 just go right into that?
My role is to make sure that I create the model that is effective and efficient, keeping communities safe, and working with the levels of government. The City Hall, the mayor, and the councillors have been vital partners when it comes to that. The provincial government has been fantastic with helping strictly with the gun violence reduction plan, and the federal government has come into play as well and giving us resources that have helped out from that front end piece that, as you saw last week, there was a presentation of funds that will be assisting our enhanced neighborhood officer program, which will, I think, be a tremendous benefit as we go forward. So the budget's going to be one piece, the funding is going to be the other piece, the partnership piece is going to be the other piece. So there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to what the budget looks like. I'm working with the board right now. They understand what the pressures are. I report to the board with respect to what the budget needs to be and why it needs to be, and we're in the process of those discussions right now.
How many officers are you Two questions, actually. How many officers are you looking to hire this year, if you are hiring? And secondly, just an aside, why have you yet to release mugshots of MacArthur and Manasseh? I mean, that's usually routine.
Yeah, I have to get back to you on that second question. First question, we're hiring. And we're not just hiring frontline police officers, we're also hiring other resources. So I spoke on the special constables. I'm looking at enhancing that next year as well, because that's important and necessary in today's environment. This last class, I believe, is 135 people that we have hired. I'm looking at hiring a couple hundred more for next year when we go into 2019 as well, too. So we're going to continue to hire. It's something that's necessary. It's something that's important.
Chief, you made enough arrests when it comes to these drive-by shootings and homicides to actually scare these gangbangers on the streets? Because you had said a little bit earlier that that's one of the things that will deter people. But do you feel like there have been enough arrests to make that impact?
Well, you know, arresting, as I stated, is not going to be the solution. I'm very serious when I say 90% of people that you arrest are going to be coming out. And we have to look at other approaches. I don't think the police are going to scare people that are. It is a deterrent. No, it is a deterrent, and it definitely is. And so we're looking at making sure that working with all levels of government, whether it's changing laws or whether or not it's enhancing the existing laws that we have to be put in place. But when it comes to what we do, when it comes to the enforcement piece, it's a very small number of people that have decided to join street gangs, but they invoke the most violence right across the entire city. And so from an investigative perspective, the men and women at Guns and Gangs and the frontline officers are doing a fantastic job. When you look at 51 Division early in the year, there was a rivalry incident that was going on between two gangs. The shootings went up significantly. 51 Division under Superintendent Riviere put a team together and did a fantastic job with resolving that. When you look at the vast reduction of shootings that took place, so we put the resources in play with that. And the same thing when we talk about our district model in the northwest end of the city, where you have 40% of the shootings year after year. And when we move to the district model, it gives the district an opportunity to reallocate the resources for what the pressures are. In that particular neighborhood, it's shooting. And so they've put a team together that has done some tremendous work when you look at the numbers of apprehensions that they have made. Just recently, they were shot at. So, I mean, the gun violence is there. We're putting the right resources into play. But again, it speaks to the enforcement piece. We will hold our own when it comes to that enforcement piece, but there have to be more things put in play on other streams as well in order for this.
Did you make enough arrests to make that impact that you were talking about earlier?
Well, we've always made an impact. When I talk about the number of firearms that we've apprehended, when we've seized.
Just arrests. Have you, like you said earlier, that's supposed to be the deterrent for these gangbangers, these arrests?
Yeah, there is.
Have you made enough in 2018? That you've made some headway?
Well, it depends on who you ask in the public. Some will say absolutely not, and some will say it's not about arresting. So it's a subjective question. Listen, we are going to respond to all of the shootings, and where we can, we will apprehend. I don't think that that's a success story. Arresting people is not the success story. Arresting someone for harm is fine. Can I get another question, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
You talked about support from the various agencies. In fact, we talked about that 2 years ago. My question to you is, have you been getting the kind of financial support you would like to get, or would you like to see some more of it from the various levels of government?
No, yes, I will say yes to all of that. When you look at the funding that is going towards those front-end pieces, you're seeing more funding. You're seeing more conversation with all levels of government. I'm seeing more of it than I have when I first got into the seat, and so I'm happy with the direction in which it's going. I think that we'll start to see some incredible results as time passes on, but I can tell you things are working right now really well, and we're going to do whatever we can to maintain those relationships if we're going to be successful.
Chief, is there a sense of urgency in
About where the guns that criminals are using are coming from, and what, if anything, somebody can do about stemming that tide of guns flowing into criminals' hands?
Well, you know, the guns are coming from different places. The crime guns, a lot of them are domestic, so that is something that is a concern. But I'm focused on two aspects. Number one, yeah, guns are coming in, but people are motivated to use them. That is something that is more critical to me because that's what's invoking a lot of the violence, a lot of the concern from the members of the public. So stripping it down and looking at that end of things, we've got a growing concern. When we talk about technology and we talk about 3D printed guns right now, you will see an increase of that. So it's not a matter of, you know, the old school that's coming from this border or it's coming in gas tanks or things along those lines. It'll be able to be manufactured. The playbook's already out. And so I'm spending more time focused on who wants a gun, why do they want a gun, and how do we stop that person from shooting that gun. And I think that when it comes to new policing, that's the way in which we have to think, because if somebody wants a gun, they're going to get a gun from whatever stream. There are more streams to get access to a gun than ever before. And so, dealing with that is one aspect of it, but changing that motivation or apprehending those that are motivated to shoot, I think, is more of a primary concern in today's environment.
Chief, is there a sense of urgency on your part personally when you think that this has been the largest year for homicides in Toronto's history? Do you think personally we have to crack down, we have to make this a lower number next year?
Our role, our responsibility is to keep the community safe and to do everything that we can within law to do just that. I won't play the numbers game. I think if we're going to get it right, it is the ability of balancing the reactive policing as well as the proactive policing. It's the ability of working with a lot of the agencies that are out there. We have so many other things that we have to look at and consider. Our mental health, people living with mental health, the numbers are going up. If you want to talk about what frustrates me the most, the numbers are going up every single year. And I've pontificated that. I would like other agencies to step in and help deal with that. When you talk about flashpoints when it comes to law enforcement and community, that is one of them. And whenever law enforcement is dealing with a person that lives with mental health, then all of these other agencies have failed that person. And so that is something that I'm looking forward to working with other agencies for that. And that is a discussion, I guess, because people just want to make everybody invisible. And that's not the case. That is our reality every single day. And so working on that, I think, is something that's critical. Getting that message out, getting other agencies involved more, and not making it a police issue is something that I think would do us all a tremendous benefit.
We're talking about the murder rate. Do you look at that number? Does the number weigh on you and say, wow, that was an extremely, you said it was a unique year? Do you personally think I have to get that down?
I'm always interested in doing whatever it takes for loss of life. I don't look at numbers. I don't want to give people a number. I think that that's a misrepresentation. A lot of people have lost loved ones. I don't think that this is going to be happening next year. We'll see what next year brings, but I do think that this was a unique year for the loss of life, and I don't think that this is going to be a trend that we're going to have every single year. I stated that at the very onset of this.
What was
Two
the
more
nadir
questions.
point for you, Chief, this year? What was the lowest point for you this year to struggle with?
You know, when we had two mass casualty incidents in such close proximity, in such a short period of time, I think that that was a game changer. I think that many members of the community had some grave concerns. It's one thing when you're dealing with the gunplay. It's another thing when you're walking down the street and looking over your shoulder, or you're sitting in a restaurant and with family and friends, and next thing you have this. And when we had two of them back to back, it changed. I think the public had some concerns and still has some concerns, and they're concerned about, is the city safe? And I can come out and I can read off the stats that will tell you, as an urban city, this is the safest urban city you will have in North America. But with time, I think people will understand that it is a safe city. It's unfortunate that we do have loss of life. The vast majority of that loss of life comes to people that are living in a high-risk lifestyle. I have concerns about that too. But the general public really felt stung by the two mass casualties back to back, and it's still there. So that was something that I had great concern with, and I still have concern with that.
Chief, what are the primary legislative changes you would like to see, or what are the greatest recommendations you've made in terms of changes?
I wish I had that question prepared for me. When it comes to street gangs, I don't think our criminal code is. I think it's antiquated. I'll be frank about that. When we go into the communities that don't have the funding, that have no hope, that feel despair, 99% of those members in the community are law-abiding. They care about their babies just like we all do. But at the same time, they have to deal with reality, and they're concerned for their safety. When you deal with street gangs, it's a team sport. It's not an individual sport. So when a member from Team A shoots a member from Team B in that particular neighborhood, it makes it very hard for you as a mom or a dad to pick up the phone and say, this is who did it, and I saw everything. Because that one person gets apprehended, but the rest of the team is out there. And their fear for retribution and a whole host of other things too. And so I would like some methodology in which we can still get that information and translate it so we can make it into a courtroom somehow. And I'm sure that if we sat down with the lawmakers, we'd have that opportunity. We get a tremendous amount of calls from the public whenever shootings happen. It's not that the members of the community are uncooperative. They help through Crime Stoppers. They help through other means of getting that information to our homicide investigators. But it's not evidence. There are people that would be willing to provide that evidence if there was some mechanism in play that was better than what we have right now. Because it's, here, video what you saw, it goes to the bad guy, and then next thing you know, the whole neighborhood knows what you said. So there is very little motivation when it comes to that moral compass where I want to help, A, because it's the right thing, and B, I don't want my babies caught in crossfire on a Saturday afternoon. But I'm genuinely scared that if I do that, and the whole world knows that I did that, that I'm left on my own. So whether or not the lawmakers can sit down and talk about street gang and the nuances to street gang and what you can do to help people who want to contribute but who won't contribute for the only reason that they fear for their lives. I think that that's a reality in this city, and I think that's something that I'd certainly like to be discussed at a table where things can tangibly be done.
More pedestrians have been struck and killed this year. When we look at, just being around in the city, there's a lot of people jaywalking. There's a lot of people walking the block. And is the message to the public that they need to follow the rules? And can you talk about the role of police with Vision Zero?
Well, when we look at the numbers, pedestrians being struck and fatal pedestrians struck, we're at 37. Last year it was 32, but the year before that it was 40. So the numbers are about the same. The one thing that I will say, cyclists have increased because it was 1 in 2016, then it was 3 in last year, and now it's 4. And so roads have changed, and there are a lot of moving parts. There are more people on the roads, there are cyclists, there are e-bikes, there are a whole host of other things. Everybody has to assume responsibility when it comes to being on the road, and that includes pedestrians. When we look at our pedestrian fatalities, year after year it's the same thing. It's over 65 mid-block are the highest causes. So the education piece is something that's important, and I know that the city is working on doing things to make it more senior-friendly. So it really is a matter of putting a lot of things together. I spoke candidly about utilizing technology better and more effectively to create traffic safety. People will obey the law if there's a sign that tells them that what they should be doing, and if there's a method to capture if they don't do it. But until that happens, you won't see significant change. I want to thank everybody for being here, and I'm looking forward to 2019. Thank you for all the support that you have given the Toronto Police Service. We are actively listening. Sometimes we don't agree on a lot of things, but you have played an instrumental part in solving a vast number of our crimes that have occurred. Missing people, you guys have been instrumental. Yesterday with Shirley Lee being found, that was a good news story, but you putting the message out there and helping us to that conclusion, I can't say thank you enough. I wish everybody a happy new year. Looking forward to seeing you, working with you in 2019. Thank you very much.
That concludes today's news conference. Thank you.